What's up, good people? What's up? The 2025 season is upon us. Our Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles, kick off the new season. And I don't know about you guys, but for the last 31 weeks, I should say, I've been chomping at the bit for this day just to come back with you guys, talk about the Birds, and talk about Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys in Lincoln Financial Field on Thursday Night Football, where the Eagles lower their Super Bowl banner in the presence of Jerry Jones and them boys and show them what a Super Bowl champion looks like. Because guess what? It's been a while. It has been a while. Listen, this is Talk to Him Tuesday. So the first half of the show, I'm just going to dialogue at you guys. The second half of the show, I'm going to take your questions and I'm going to answer your questions throughout the second half of the show. The Super Bowl win, okay? I don't want to rush this thing because it's such a big deal and we're all excited about this upcoming season because our Birds are going to be Super Bowl contenders, in my opinion, for the next 2 to 3 years. So first of all, I've got to give some props to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. Back in 2003, Jeffrey Lurie said, this organization is the gold standard for what every other team in the NFL aspires to. And he ate crow for quite a few years, 2003 to 2017. That's 13 years before the Eagles actually won their first Super Bowl. And he has been committed since 2017, leading up to this 2025 season, to turning the Eagles into just that. 3 Super Bowls within the last 8 years, okay? 2 Super Bowl wins against 1 Super Bowl loss. And his commitment to financially figure out how he is going to, build this football team is the point that I want to make. Everybody wants to know what is it and how is it that Howie Roseman builds this team, keeps his top-tier players signed when everybody else around the NFL is struggling to be able to maintain and hold on to their top-tier players. You got to point the finger at Jeffrey Lurie, because what Jeffrey Lurie is willing to do is to make available the cash that allows him to pay his players on the front end, lowering their salary cap number. For example, take a guy like Jalen Hurts. On average, you look at his contract, it's $51 million a year over the life of the contract. But how is it that Jalen Hurts only counts $14, $15 million against the salary cap, where other teams, their quarterbacks are counting $40, $50 million against the cap, and you wonder why they don't have the room to maneuver? Because Jeffrey is willing to front load those deals with cash, renegotiate some deals with cash that allows them to be active in the free agency market, allows them to re-sign other up-and-coming stars, and allows them to operate in this salary cap era. Secondly, Howie Roseman is one savvy GM. Okay, I got to tell you, I have some admiration for the guy, because if you go back, post the first Super Bowl in 2017, and you look at 2018, 2019, the city of Philadelphia was ready to run Howie Roseman out of town, but Jeffrey Lurie stood by him. He made some errors and some mistakes along the way, which he has publicly admitted to. But when he righted the ship, man, he righted the ship. If you look at his last 3 drafts, absolutely outstanding. If you look at his ability to sign players have success, allow those players to walk in free agency, and for him to acquire additional, draft capital, and for him to be able to maneuver and swindle other teams out of draft capital that allows him to not only refurbish this team with better talent, but also make sure that the young talent that he has, that he can keep those guys on board. The Philadelphia Eagles clearly are the gold standard when you look at them from an organizational standpoint. When you look at them from the standpoint of head coach Nick Sirianni, I'm giving everybody their flowers today. Signed a long-term 3-year deal, one of the top paid head coaches in the National Football League, and guess what? He deserves it. He deserves it 100%. To be the head coach of this football team for the last, 4 years, and having been in the playoffs 4 years in a row, gone to 2 Super Bowls within a 3-year span, and has this team believing in what he's selling. I just don't understand why he's not looked upon and talked about as one of the top coaches in the National Football League. Because no matter what I think about him, and I've had my doubts at times, and I've reversed field based upon what the maturation that I saw last year, no matter what the local or the national media thinks about him, the guy just wins. The guy just wins. Jalen Hurts, I think the stat that I read today during my TV show, the taping of my TV show, I believe that Jalen is 46 or 48 and 20. That's Nick Sirianni, because these two guys are connected at the hip. So any success that Jalen Hurts has had or any success that Nick Sirianni has had, they've had together. That leads me to believe that we've got to start giving Nick Sirianni his props. And I don't think nationally that he'll ever get the kind of consideration, because when everybody looks at this football team, what do they talk about? Oh, look at the roster. You can't be mad at Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts for the roster that's been put in front of them, because they got an owner that's committed to winning financially, and they got a GM who knows how to savvily navigate the salary cap and how to acquire assets to build a team. So that should count as a strike against Nick Sirianni as a head coach, and that should count as a strike against Jalen Hurts, because their organization is giving them the assets to be competitive each and every year. That's wrong. Absolutely wrong. Let's talk about how Nick Sirianni is continuing to motivate this football team. The normal mode of operation with Kansas City being the outlier, a team gets to the Super Bowl, they win a Super Bowl, they come back the next year because they've lost so much, they kind of go in the tank a little bit. Per Jalen Hurts, quote, Nick Sirianni is saying, contributions over credit. That's how we're going to operate this year. You contribute. Don't worry about who gets the credit, because at the end of the day, it's all about winning. It doesn't matter how you get it done. Just get it done. Unquote. Now, this is what Jalen Hurts is saying, that the messaging is coming from Nick Sirianni. Let's wash last year, forget about it, and let's refocus and retool and get our minds set on the task at hand. And that's defending Super Bowl 59 and securing Super Bowl 60. And listen, let me tell you something. When it comes to how we perceive head coaches and what we may think about a head coach and what the outside world may think about a head coach, you want to know something? You want to know the only thing that really matters is that those 53 guys and those guys on that practice squad and any other guy on that roster, that guess what? He believes and he's buying into what Nick Sirianni is selling. And based upon his record and based upon his playoff record, oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts is 6-3 in the playoffs as well. Better than just about any other quarterback out there except for the aforementioned Patrick Mahomes. But if his team is buying that and you got great players, guess what? You're going to succeed. And they're buying whatever it is that he's selling. They're buying it hook, line, and sinker. That bodes well for the team, the players, and the organization. Jalen Hurts. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. His haters continue to doubt, prognosticate, and make excuses. The same old rhetoric. And I mean, not only on a national level, but right here in the city of brotherly love, we've got people that continue to doubt this kid okay? After he just won the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl MVP. I get it. Saquon Barkley was the show last year. But show me a quarterback who doesn't have the players around him to succeed, and I'll show you an unsuccessful quarterback, plain and simply. Jalen Hurts is willing to do whatever's necessary to win. If that's turning around and handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley 30 times in a game and only throwing it 15, he's willing to do it. If he's asked to throw the ball 30, 35 times a game, he's willing to do it. If he's asked to run the football, run the tush push, oh, by the way, which is now sponsored by Dude Wipes. I thought you guys would get a chuckle out of that. But if he's asked, whatever it is that he's asked to do, he does it. And the guy's quite simply a winner. But everybody want to talk about all the players that are around him. Here's a little bit of food for thought. And I'm not saying that the roster that Jalen Hurts has isn't a great roster. But what I'm saying is, if all of these players were the sole reason why he was succeeding, and I saw today that Saquon Barkley is the number one rated player by the players on NFL Network. They went through the top 100, and he came out today as number one. Jalen Hurts is number 19, which leaves me scratching my head a little bit. But if that was the case, then why aren't there so many more players on this roster ranked in the top 100? When you look at the grades on Madden, and a lot of, people, put a lot of onus on the grades in Madden. Why aren't there more players on this roster that are rated a lot higher on Madden? Let's take it a step further. You gonna tell me that Patrick Mahomes hasn't had talent, hasn't had a good defense? You gonna tell me that Lamar Jackson hasn't had talent and a great defense? You gonna tell me that Joe Burrow on the offensive side of the ball is at a disadvantage when it comes to talent around him? Not buying it, okay? Everyone wants to talk about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert entered the playoffs last year, and when he exited with 4 interceptions in that game. And I can go on and on and on about the prognosticators and all the people that say, hey, guess what? If I was starting a team tomorrow, guess what? Jalen Hurts wouldn't be that guy. Tom Brady doesn't feel that way. Joe Montana doesn't feel that way. If you didn't see the clip today, go to Twitter and look it up. Joe Montana said that Jalen Hurts is the 4th quarterback that he would pick if he was starting the franchise tomorrow. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and then Jalen Hurts. This from one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League. But all the people out there that think that they know a damn thing about football, they continue to beat up our quarterback. Keep it up, because I want you guys to know all you guys do is motivate him and push him to prove you wrong. And he doesn't play to prove you wrong. He plays to be the best that he could be. And he doesn't care how it gets done. You can talk all you want, but guess what? He got a Super Bowl ring. Lamar Jackson ain't got one. Justin Herbert ain't got one. Josh Allen ain't got one. Joe Burrow ain't got one. And as a matter of fact, in actuality, the only other quarterback that I just listed who's ever been to a Super Bowl is Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts has been to 2. But all these other quarterbacks are so much more supremely better than Jalen Hurts. Let me tell you what you miss about Jalen Hurts, okay? Because they don't really give him credit where credit is due. They just want to look at the offensive line, and they want to look at Saquon Barkley and say that that's it and that's that, okay? Jalen Hurts needs to be given credit as the field general of this offense. Because if you know anything about football, you can look at the game and see where the play is being called, but Jalen's making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. That 40-something yard touchdown to Devontae Smith in the Super Bowl, that play was checked to by Jalen Hurts at the line of scrimmage. Nobody sees when he checks out of one play into another, where when he checks out of a play and he hands the ball off to Saquon Barkley, because they got the look that they wanted. He made the check that was necessary, and Saquon Barkley's off for a 40, 50-yard plus touchdown. Nobody wants to talk about that. He took over last year for the first time in his career as the guy who's making all the calls up front. He's calling out the protections. He asked for it last year. He got it. Whether it was a good thing or not, nobody really knows. But the Eagles won the Super Bowl with him being the guy. And you hear a guy like Tom Brady says, I don't understand why any quarterback wouldn't want to have total control over the whole show. You want it for a reason because it allows you to be the guy that can make the decisions and see where when you're in the wrong play, you need to get in the right play. And when you're in a good play, you can get in a better play. And that's what Jalen Hurts is doing, and nobody wants to talk about it. All they want to talk about is the talent that's around him and his lackluster year last year passing the ball. Keep doubting him. Keep doubting him. And he's going to keep proving you wrong because he plays to win the football games and to win by any means necessary. And everybody else is hell-bent on stats and what that looks like. Would you rather your quarterback throw for 300 yards every single week and get their ass beat? Or would you rather have your quarterback play like Jalen Hurts is playing, contribute running the ball, contribute getting in and out of the right plays, making the right checks, contribute throwing the ball when he has to throw the ball? Would you rather have that or would you rather have the guy that's filling up the stat sheet? You tell me. All right? Let's talk about Saquon Barkley. NFL Offensive Player of the Year, NFL rushing champion last year, 2,005 yards in the regular season, and I believe he, has the record for total yards throughout the regular season and the playoffs combined. I believe. Don't hold my feet to that fire, but I think so. And everybody asked me, "Hey, can he duplicate it?" He doesn't have to duplicate it because teams are going to look at what the Kansas City Chiefs did in the Super Bowl. They held them on to 57 yards on 25 carries. The Eagles are going to see a lot of heavy boxes this year, which means that Jalen Hurts is going to have the opportunity to put the ball in the air and make some plays down the field. If you're going to get in a single high safety the lion's share of the time and load up the box, well, they're just going to play action you and take their shots down the field. Matchup-wise, if A.J. Brown's got the best matchup, the ball's going to A.J. Brown. If Devontae's got the best matchup, the ball's going to Devontae. Wherever the ball has to go, that's where it's going. And teams can try to replicate that if they want to. The majority of teams couldn't do it last year. The only time that you've seen a team come close to being able to control Saquon was after Jalen got concussed in the second Washington game last year, and he went out of the game, the read option, and the RPO was dead. So now they didn't have to worry about Kenny Pickett pulling the ball and running. So you could get in a true 8-man box with a free hitter every single time and get Saquon under control. But every other team that they played against last year, they couldn't handle that run game. So there are going to be some teams that are going to try it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for them. And at the other end of the spectrum, let's talk about the addition of A.J. Dillon and Will Shipley's emergence. Because Saquon Barkley had 378 total touches last year. I had to go and look it up because I was like, he was probably around 350, maybe 375, but 378 total touches. Now, I'm not worried about him breaking down because the guy's in supreme condition. But I would like to see his numbers minimized a little bit, and I think that's why you go and you sign an A.J. Dillon and you bring him on board because you want to bring those numbers down. That doesn't mean that everybody keeps saying, "Oh, can he do it again?" You don't have to do it again. And in all probability, he may not get close to 2,000 yards again. That doesn't mean that he can't. That just means that the Eagles will probably be a little smarter this year. And I'm not saying that it was dumb what they did. They were winning by any means necessary last year. And that meant, riding the Saquon train. But if you can minimize some of his carries, cut down on some of the wear and tear, and not lose anything by running Dillon and Shipley, why wouldn't you do it? But just his presence on the field is going to force most teams to get in a heavy box, to get in a 7 or 8-man look to try to get him under control, which is then going to allow the Eagles to go max protection, one-on-ones on the outside, and for Jalen Hurts to say, okay, who do I want to feed the ball to this week? Where's my matchup this week? All right. Kevin Patullo, new offensive coordinator. Everybody asked me, what do you think? All you got to do is not mess it up. You got the best offensive roster in the National Football League when you talk about from the standpoint of offensive line, running back, wide receivers, and tight ends. You got the best roster in the league. And it's not like Kevin Patullo's coming in off the street somewhere, a new coordinator with a new offense. He's been standing right next to Kellen Moore all the last year. He's been here. He was Jalen's quarterback coach. So all you got to do, coach, is not mess it up. All you do is not mess it up. Do what you did last year. Add some wrinkles here or there, some key breakers here or there. Just don't mess it up. And I find it hard to believe that they will. I find it hard to believe that Kevin Patullo will come in here and try to do something so out of bounds of what they did last year. If they haven't proven that they can beat what you did last year, why would you ever change? Why would you ever change? That's the thing that blows me away about coaches sometimes. If you have success with a play one way, hell, flip the formation over and run it the other way. If they prove that they can't stop it, flip it over and run it again the other way. And then have some play action passes or some key breakers off of that to make them think you're going to do it again because you can't stop it. And they're going to be overplaying it now and go in the other direction. So many options. Hard for him to screw it up, in my opinion. Let's jump over on the defensive side of the ball because I'm going to try to wrap this 30 minutes up on time. I got 7 minutes. And then we get to your questions in the second half. Vic Fangio, his task, okay? He's got 4 new starters. And my concern is at cornerback and safety. You got Adoree Jackson that's slotted in as the starter. He beat out Keely Ringo for the starting job. But the fact that they traded for Jacorian Bennett late in training camp tells me that they're not 100% sold on Adoree Jackson. Ain't nobody messing with Quinyon Mitchell on the other side. But Adoree Jackson or Jacorian Bennett, whoever it winds up being when the dust settles, you better realize you better put your big boy pants on because they're going to game plan you. They're going to come after you every single week. Sidney Brown, starter at safety, penciled in, but the young boy Andre Makubu, hey, he's shown that he wants some playing time, that he's hungry. So Sidney better come and get it done. I hope he's learned how to switch his gears because Sidney is a 120-mile-an-hour guy all the time. And you guys have heard me say it before. You can't play that way in the National Football League. You got to know when to go 120. You got to know when to gear it down to 90, when to take it down to 70, sometimes even down to 50. And he's got to learn how to do that. But my concerns are that just because we don't know what it's going to look like quite yet with so much indecision there. On the edge, you got Jalix Hunt stepping in as the starter now for the departed Josh Sweat. Not concerned because he showed promise towards the end of last year, but first year as a starter, we'll wait and see. Jahad Campbell, now, I am so excited about this kid. I'm so excited because he, to me, has the potential to be Zach Bond on steroids. He's super athletic. He's a Swiss Army knife. You can line him up outside and rush him. You can play him off the ball. If you want to get creative, you can line him up on the edge and bounce him back. You can line him up off the ball and move him up, which allows you to morph between your 4 and your 5-man front. And then your dime package, I mean, in your NASCAR package, you talk about games that you can run. Can you imagine him and Jalen Carter on the same side in third down and long situations? Like if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm drooling on my shirt every day, thinking about the different ways that I can use Jahad Campbell. He can do it all. He can play the run. He can rush the passer. He can drop into coverage, and he can cover. I'm super excited. My only question mark with him is how quickly can he decipher and pick up the defense and allow Vic Fangio to call the type of defenses that he wants to call without him having to worry whether Jahad Campbell knows what to do and what not to do. I think depth-wise, we're good. Moro Jomo, in my opinion, is ready for a breakout season. The way he played towards the end of the year, we know what we have, in Carter. Jordan Davis, 25 pounds down in the final year of his contract. You know he's going to play lights out and he's ready to play. But Moro Jomo is a guy that's going to get a lot of playing time, similar to the way Milton Williams kind of took over, for Jordan Davis last year. Ty Robinson, 4th-round draft pick out of Nebraska. A lot of ranting and raving about him. Let's see what he brings to the table. And on the edge, you got Ibu Okoranwu, Aziz Ozolari, and Josh Uche. Now, guys got to prove themselves, but I don't think Vic Fangio puts any player in a situation where he doesn't believe that guy can get it done. That guy probably would not be on the roster anymore if he didn't feel like that guy has some great potential. I got full faith in Vic Fangio to get this young defense on track. The same way he took the 31st ranked defense last year, and by the time they entered the season and won the Super Bowl, they were the number 1 ranked defense in the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, that kind of thing just doesn't happen very often. So I got full faith in Vic Fangio and his staff to develop these young players. So we got the Dallas Cowboys rolling in on Thursday night. Can't wait to drop that banner on Jerry. Nothing will give me more pleasure than to see that. All right? And that's my soliloquy for right now. I think let's go to a break, and when we come back, I'm looking forward to taking you guys' call, your questions. It's been a while that, since I've been with you guys. It's been, since the draft. But we're in full swing every Tuesday. I'm right here. Go to the Seth Joyner channel, Seth Joyner Show channel. Make sure you subscribe. Follow me on all social media outlets. Listen, we just going to be rolling the content to you. Every game day, we're on the channel with our pre- and post-game with myself, Derek Gunn, Mark Farzetta, and Bailey Livesey. TV show on PHL 17 every Wednesday night, and then again on NBC Sports Philly on Thursday nights, and then right here every single week with Seth Joyner Podcast with you, breaking down our birds as they endeavor and take off on their attempt to go back-to-back Super Bowl winners. I'll see you in a sec.
I know what you're thinking. Total glow up. What's her secret? Fine, I'll spill. I totally upgraded with Verizon. Everyone gets a free phone with any plan, even if you're already a customer, like me. Now I have Google Gemini. It's like a little glam squad in my pocket. Gemini, what eye makeup goes with this lipstick?
I'd suggest a classic cat eye.
Wow, setting the bar high for daycare pickup. Get in on this.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There is a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen.
There's a number on the screen. There's a number on the screen.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come join our team. Welcome back, people. It is the Seth Joyner Podcast, here with you every Tuesday night from 7:30 to 8. And tonight, on the eve, or the double eve, of the Philadelphia Eagles 2025 season Super Bowl defense, we got to talk to them Tuesday tonight. So I'm going to have my producers pull up some questions, the hot questions in the chat. And I'm going to read your questions live for the next 30 minutes and answer your questions during the show. All right. First question. All right. Fanny, Eagles fangirl, wants to know, folks are rattled because they think we're missing pieces. No sweat here. Trains still run with the missing passengers. Hey, listen, this is something that transpires with every team that wins the Super Bowl. You're always going to have some players and some pieces that you're going to lose that are in contract years, and you win the Super Bowl and they play well. And listen, let's deal with each player. Even Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton is a guy that I wanted to keep, but I understand why the Eagles moved on. $10 million a year contract when you got some young guys that you drafted, those guys have got to get on the play. Let's get back over on the defensive side of the ball because that's the only offensive player, that we missed. And only time will tell how Tyler Steen and some of those guys that are behind him, that are pushing him, will fare. On the defensive side of the ball, Josh Sweat is a guy that gave you, and I'm not trying to minimize any players, but I say this because what I'm trying to get you to understand is that we're going to be fine, okay? We got these young players. We got to bring them along under their rookie contracts as far as the dollars are concerned because salary cap-wise, that's what's necessary. Jalen Carter's got to be paid next year. His contract is going to be plus $40 million per year. If they decide to, retain Jordan Davis, I don't know what that number is going to look like. That's another guy they're going to have to retain. Let's just think logically, people. Milton Williams at $100+ million is a guy that we weren't going to retain. That just happens. Josh Sweat was a guy, with some mileage on him at $76 million. We weren't going to retain him. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think he kind of ran his course here, and he did it to himself because he could have probably been here at the number that he was at. But, this is the type of organization that they're just not going to put up with the nonsense. You're either going to buy in or you're out, plain and simple. Do I miss the guy? Yes. But I'm excited about Andre Makuba. I'm excited about Sidney Brown. Do they need to bring his leadership skills to the forefront? Yes. Do they need to bring his communication skills on the background to the forefront like he did? Absolutely. But Reed Blankenship is at a point in his career where he's the elder statesman, and he should be the guy that takes over where CJ left off in that regard. And Makuba is a guy that looks to make plays, looks like, to me, a CJ Gardner-Johnson, a young one. And lastly, Darius Slay. I think that the big mistake, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that the Eagles made was not bringing back Isaiah Rodgers, because I think that the consternation that they have at the corner position on the other side from Quinyon Mitchell would have been rectified and taken care of had they kept Isaiah Rodgers. Did he look a little rusty last year? Absolutely. But the guy's 4'3", and he's been out of football for a whole year. Don't you think that he's going to have some rust? But the Eagles decided that they were going to allow Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks to compete for this job, and neither one of them could get it done. So we got Adoree Jackson, and we got Jacorian Bennett. So we'll see how that all works out. But these are moves that had to be made. And is it going to take some time? It may be a little rocky in the beginning like it was last year. But like I said earlier, I have the full faith and confidence in Vic Fangio to get these guys motivated and get them prepared and ready to play. And it may take the first 4 games of the season like it did last year to figure it out. But I'm confident that he'll get it done. Every single year is different. And every single year you have to make adjustments and change. And guess what? The offense may have to carry the defense through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And they're fully they're fully able to get that done. They're fully competent to get that done. But I'm not worried. And the people that are, shame on you. Your football team is Super Bowl defending champions, and they're positioned, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, to do it again. Maybe once, maybe twice. Who knows? What up? What about the long-term development of Hurts? As these young players on defense get paid, Hurts will have to work with less talent on offense? Well, it's worked for them to this point. What up? And I tell you what, this football team has been constructed from an offensive perspective. So that's why I say, hey, this team is positioned for the next 2 or 3 years, because over the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to be in position to win based upon how the roster is constructed right now and based upon financially what the future outlook looks like. Now, let's cross that other bridge that you're talking about when we get there. But right now, this team is supremely set to be competitive the next 2 or 3 years. The only thing that I think that sets this team back is injury. Injury to a major piece on the offense or a major piece on the defense is the only thing that I think sets this team back. Even with a more difficult record this year, I think they're hungry enough, they're built sternly enough, and they're hungry to get back to another Super Bowl enough to overcome this hell of a schedule that the NFL has given them. No back-to-back home games, home and away, home and away, home and away. In one back-to-back away game, 10 teams that were in the playoffs last year are on the Eagles' schedule. Hey, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. I'm not worried. Neither should you be. All right, next question. CB4 wants to know, Seth, wouldn't you had wanted a vet like Justin Simmons in the back end rotation? Hey, listen, I've been saying all season, all training camp long, when there was a little bit of consternation, a little bit of conversation about, things not working out and looking the way that they might have wanted it to be, I expected that Justin Simmons may be the move. I don't know why, they didn't go and sign him. I guess when you draft a kid in the second round at safety, maybe your mentality is, hey, let's see how this guy progresses. Because if you go and you bring in a veteran, what kind of effect is that going to have on your two young guys, Sidney Brown and Andre Makuba? I think they've kind of hedged their bets because, the star in the making that Cooper DeJean is, they played him at some safety during training camp. They played him in the slot, his natural position, and they also lined him up outside a few times. So they know that they have the versatility and the intellect to be able to move that guy wherever they need to, if they have to. But Howie's mandate is to get younger on the defensive side of the ball. And if that's the case, maybe that's the reason why they don't go and they don't bring in a Justin Simmons. But listen, I had the same exact question. If you've got some consternation at safety, you know what you got out there in this player. But maybe their thought process and their mentality is just a little bit different. And maybe, you never know, maybe Vic Fangio nixed it. Maybe he said, we're good with what we have. All right, next question. Isaiah Alexander wants to know, will we see a 3 defensive tackle, 3 linebacker scheme on the defensive end and more exotic looks? Hey, listen, I'm going to say this. I believe that Vic Fangio has got more in the tank than he showed us last year. But when you're a first-year defensive coordinator, I don't know that that's actually, that's a smart move. You kind of let your guys, get caught up to speed with what you're feeding them. Sometimes, you can put a little too much on the spoon. Sometimes, you got to kind of feed them like a baby. You spoon a little bit and you shave a little bit off and you give them enough to just fit in their mouth. You don't want to put so much in their mouth it's like falling out the sides. So I don't know. There's a possibility because, really what you're talking about is an Eagle front. And in a lot of ways, their 5-man line is just that anyway. So they're probably already running some version of it, where you kick the 3 interior guys down, and you cover up the center and the 2 guards, and you got your 2 edge guys on the outside. That's an Eagle look, or a 46 look, in my terminology. They're already doing some of it. But I just honestly believe that Vic Fangio's got a lot left in the chamber. And as these guys continue to get better and learn this defense and dissect and decipher a lot more, I think he'll begin to feed them a lot more. But, you got some new guys on the edge. You got a couple of, you got a first-time starter and a new guy at defensive tackle, and you got a new linebacker that has to learn all of that. That's a lot that has to come together, and couple that with the guys on the back end, those safeties, and those cornerbacks, maybe we just need to slow our roll a little bit. Let's see, how they progress through, the in-season, preseason piece of the schedule, the first 4 games, and then we'll look at it, from a different perspective after that. All right. Next question. Ron K wants to know, should Makuba start? I think so. Well, listen, I'm not privy to what goes on in the practice setting. Did he have a hell of a game during the preseason, an interception, for the touchdown? I believe a fumble recover or a fumble recalls in the preseason. That's all promising. But the preseason and the regular season are 2 different animals. And 2 plays during the preseason does not a starter make. I think that Sidney Brown has been in the system a little bit longer. I don't know. Vic Fangio knows. The defensive back coach knows. The circumstances are much, much better than we do. I think it's too early for us to be saying this guy should be starting over that one or that one should be starting over this one. We just don't know. We just don't know until, we can get 3 or 4 games under our belt and see how these guys progress through the early part of the season. And then as they begin to show you who they are and what they are, then you can say to yourself, okay, like Cooper DeJean in for Avonte Maddox after the bye week. Then we can say, okay, now we need to make that change. Or the coaching staff will say we need to make that change, and let's see how that flies. Next question. The Chancellor of Football. Oh, my man. What's happening, Jay Taylor? Taylor Bliss has the Eagles facing the Packers for the NFC Championship. I'll take that right now, baby. Who do you have facing Philly in the NFC Championship game? That's interesting. I'm just curious, Jeff. Are you saying that because the Packers now went out and traded for Micah Parsons? I just want to thank Jerry Claus for giving us Christmas in August and making that trade and making, life a lot easier, not only on us, but all the NFC East. That's interesting because it's early on. A lot of people would say the Detroit Lions, I got my reservations about the Lions. It's hard to lose 2 coordinators in the same year and suffer the collapse in the postseason the way that they did last year and think that they could be right back where they want to be. I think the Minnesota Vikings are coming, but I don't think they'll quite be ready because I think there'll be some growing pains for J.J. McCarthy at some point during the season. And that's just a very interesting take. It wouldn't be way outside the possibility, to have the Eagles facing, the Washington Commanders again in the NFC Championship game. That's possible. You go out west and you think, have the 49ers, righted the ship. Just don't know yet. I mean, who else is there if you really stop and think about it? Right now, I think, the running 1 and 2, in my opinion, may be the Green Bay Packers, and the Washington Commanders. All right. Next question. What is that? Gmail, Russ. Seth, this is Russ. Question. How is it Hurts getting Patullo? Will Kevin have a good positive impact on Hurts' performance? Hey, listen, he was Jalen's quarterback coach all of last year. Like I said, in the beginning of the show, all Kevin Patullo, in my opinion, has to do is not mess it up. Follow the blueprint. Make some adjustments from what you did last year, because I can promise you every team in the National Football League has spent the entire season, particularly the teams in the NFC East and the teams in the NFC Conference, has spent the entire offseason dissecting and looking at what the Eagles did last year and trying to figure out how to knock the Eagles off the king of the mountain of the NFL. So the Eagles are going to have to make some adjustments to what they did last year, because other teams are going to make adjustments to why the Eagles were so successful last year. But I don't see Kevin Patullo being, and I get it, he's got to make the calls and he's got to make the adjustments, along the way. I got to believe that, Nick Sirianni is going to be involved in that process. But like I said, he's not coming in as a new offensive coordinator with a whole new scheme and trying to get this offense to learn something new. He's the only change. The running back coach is the same. The tight end coach is the same. The offensive line coach is the same. The wide receivers coach is the same. And in a lot of ways, the quarterback coach is the same. So all Kevin Patullo's got to do is just take the advice of everybody that surrounded him, remember what Kellen Moore did last year, and just don't mess it up. And I think that they're so talented that it's almost impossible to screw up, this Ferrari that he's been given. Don't take a Ferrari and drive it like a Jeep. Start out slow, and as you get your feet up under you, shift from second to third to fourth to fifth and to sixth. By the time they get to the end of the year, they'll be in sixth gear going 120 miles an hour, all right? Next question. Christine, is that Shabib, Seth Joyner show, should we worry about a few losses in the beginning of the year? Many fans are worried about the heavy schedule. Listen, the Eagles started off last year 2-2. That's not a death knell. I think if you start off 1-3, 2-4, that's a tough road to hoe. Because if other teams within the conference or the other teams in the division get up 2, 3, 4 games on you, that's a lot to try to overcome with the schedule being as difficult as it is. That being said, when you look at the schedule, many believe that the Eagles could potentially start off, 1-3, 2-4, 2-2 again. I don't know that I necessarily believe that, because I think that this team is supremely confident, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think the offense can carry the defense to a certain extent. So, no, I'm not necessarily worried about the Eagles, getting in a hole early. But losing is a part of the game. I think sometimes as fans, when our team has success like it did, 18-3 and 16-1 over the last 17 games of the season, we get a little spoiled. There may be some hiccups early in the season, but the beauty of it is it's early in the season, and the team will have an opportunity to recover and right the ship as the season progresses. So, no, I'm not worried about it. If they lose a game or two here or there, within the first 5 or 6 games, I'm not worried about it at all, because this not only has this team shown their resilience, but this coaching staff has shown the ability to make the requisite and necessary adjustments to right the ship. So the worry level should be down just a little bit, instead of us being Philly, worrying about every little thing that could potentially go wrong. Let's worry about what could go right. All right. Next question. Michael Sadler says, do I think that Darius Cooper is too good to be true? Nope. I think that every single year there's a handful of players that don't get drafted or get drafted late that GMs and personnel people miss on. And they come in with a chip on their shoulder and with malice in their heart to show every team in the National Football League that didn't believe in them who and what they could be. You're looking at one of those guys right here, 8th round draft pick, 200 and I believe 8th pick or 28th pick in the 1986. Yeah, I wish 2000. 1986 draft. Cut the first 2 games of my rookie season. Back by week 3. Special teams up to week 8 or 9. Starter in week 8 or week 9. Starter the rest of my career. So that kid is motivated, and he's got all the tools and all the ability in the world. And there's a lot of players out there that just need a chance, need a shot, need for a team to give them an opportunity. And they gave him an opportunity, and he took advantage of it. He got his foot in the door, and he kicked the damn door down. And I couldn't be more proud of a player, because I know what that feels like to be doubted and for a team to not think much of you, but to bring you in as a training camp body and you flip the script on their ass. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. So I don't hear the guys being too good to be true, because he showed up every day at training camp and showed them what he could do. Play after play after play, series after series, period after period, individual period after individual period, in the classroom, learning the playbook. So those guys aren't fly by night. All he's going to need is the opportunity to show that he can continue to get better. And listen, that's going to be hard on this football team. You know, the thing is, get on special teams. Go and make some plays on special teams. Make it hard for this organization to say, hey, you know, we need a spot. Well, maybe we ought to relegate him down to, you know, the practice squad, or maybe we'll cut him and bring him back. No. Keep doing what you're doing, Darius. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't minimize your shine because somebody else is uncomfortable. Keep doing what you're doing, okay? Because your day will come. You never know where it's going to be. Your day will come. And I think that this kid, from what I've seen, his size, his speed, his want to, his aggression, he's here because he deserves to be here. All right, next question. Todd Labor wants to know, Seth, question, what are your favorite Eagles stories with Eagles playing the Cowboys? It has to be, you know, Troy Aikman's rookie year when we sacked him 11 times in a game. There are so many plays and so many different games, you know, where I can think of plays where I had an interception, plays where I had a caused fumble, a recovered fumble. I didn't do much that day, I don't believe, you know, because the guys up front was just, you know, tearing Troy a new one. 11 sacks. Clyde had 4.5. That was something to be on the back end and watch those guys destroy, you know, that offense the way they did. That's my fondest memory. And then again, every victory over the Cowboys was a fond memory. Next question. RLT Universe wants to know, if any injuries shall happen, what positions do you think has the strongest depth and which one has the weakest depth? Well, I'm going to say some things that might rub some people the wrong way, but I believe that the offensive line is the deepest. The cornerback position is probably one of the weakest. And although Tanner McKee has looked fantastic, not only in Week 18 but throughout training camp and throughout the preseason, and I heard all the rhetoric about how he would probably be the better quarterback for this offense, what people don't realize is that if we lose Jalen Hurts, we lose a specific piece of our offense. Because as successful as Saquon Barkley was last year, some of that success has to be attributed to Jalen Hurts. You can see that in the Washington game when Jalen Hurts went out of the game. When you remove the RPO and you remove the read option, the fact that Jalen can ride and pull and take off and run for a 40-yard touchdown like he did against the Rams in the divisional game, okay? That requires that defensive end or that linebacker to stay home while he rides. So if he's got to stay home, that means that you got man-on-man across the board. You lose one defender. They're only playing with 10 defenders because if Jalen hands it off, that guy's standing out there all by himself in no man's land doing nothing, okay? When Tanner McKee enters the football game, you know they're not running that. They're going to run a traditional offense. And yes, he can operate from the pocket, but if for some reason or another it's not going well, you don't have that piece. You know, that's why things were so helter-skelter with Kenny Pickett in the game last year, because all of a sudden that part of your offense goes away. You've got to refashion your whole offense to fit this guy. That's why I've been saying forever, and it didn't work out with DTR. The Eagles need to go and find a guy who can do some of the things that Jalen can do so that when Jalen gets hurt, you don't have to alter your offense. And trust me, I love Tanner McKee. You guys remember me last year saying that he deserved to be the backup quarterback, not Kenny Pickett. But that's just how I feel about it. You know, I mean, to each his own. Everybody's got their own opinion. I just think that, you know that Jalen Hurts is not if he's going to get hurt. He's going to miss 1 or 2 games every single year because when he decides to run, teams are trying to figure out how they can put him in the protocol, plain and simple. But if you got a quarterback who can give you a semblance of some of the things that he can do, now you don't have to alter your offense. And that's just going to make Saquon more effective back there running the football. All right, next question. AK wants to know, do I think the Eagles will finally ditch the shotgun runs and utilize a heavier set like I formation in the red zone? I doubt it. I doubt it, just for the reason I just explained. Their intent is to get to, 3rd and 1, 4th and run so they can run the tush push. So it doesn't matter what they run, in certain situations. You don't broke what's not fixed. Saquon Barkley rushed for 2,005 yards all by himself in the regular season and didn't even play in Week 18, just in case you forgot. Now, granted, I agree with you to a certain extent. I'm not a big fan of living in shotgun all the time because what does it do? For me, it puts the offense at a disadvantage because if you're going to run the ball, and I give run game coordinator Jeff Stoutland a lot of credit because he's got a lot of creativity. When I watch a lot of what they do, I'm like, as a linebacker, they do some things that are so unconventional, I don't even know who the hell to read. But at the other end of the spectrum, if I'm Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley is lined up to my left, 98% of the time, you're running across the ball across his face, across the quarterback's face. So all the runs have to go from left to right because of where he's aligned. Now, if he lines up in the pistol behind Jalen, that's a whole different ball of wax. But I think it's a disadvantage sometimes to the running game when you line up and you run the ball out of so much, offset shotgun formation. Because if I'm a defensive player, I want to cut the field in half. If Saquon's got to go across, I'm taking away. I'm slanting my defensive tackle to take away any cutback. Sounds easier than it really is when you consider how Saquon just gashed the entire NFL and ran over everybody last year. But I'm just giving you some of my mental, how I look at things. I would love to see Jalen under center a little more so you can take advantage of Saquon running the football and go some play action passes, some bootlegs and those types of things. Some screens off a bootleg, tight end screens, running back screens, wide receiver screens instead of line up in trips and throwing it out there for the bubble screen, But that's just me. It was hard to complain about a team who just went to the Super Bowl last year and destroyed the team that they were not favored to win. And to me, that score is really 40-41-6. I don't even count those garbage points later in the game. Destroyed, both offensively and defensively. So, let's wait and see. I get what you're saying, and I subscribe to some of what you're saying, but at the other end of the spectrum, it's hard to argue with where this football team is and what the coaches has deemed how they're going to do things. All right, folks, that's the show for tonight. I'll be back right here next week with you guys, same place, same time. Howard Eskin is my guest in the second half of the show. So chime in, hear what the Kings got to say. And as always, take care of each other and be good to each other. But most importantly, especially today, in this day and age, make sure you love each other. All right? Peace. I'll see you next week.
At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.
If you understand that success is built on trusted relationships and dependable performance, Mid-Penn Bank is the right bank for you. We're on a mission to prove that the right bankers can make a big difference. We work harder, we get things done, and we're in your corner. With financial centers strategically located throughout the greater Philadelphia region and new locations in central New Jersey, we're ready to bring you the best in commercial and personal banking. Call or visit us today to connect with a professional Mid-Penn banker. Member FDIC. Go Eagles!
Pride, passion, and persistence. These are the values that drive us all at Ron Jaworski Golf. We strive to deliver outstanding conditions as well as playability for golfers of all ages and abilities. Our championship golf courses offer a variety of challenges from a link-style walk along the river to an escape into the pines and everything in between. My team at Ron Jaworski Golf is committed to delivering memorable experiences every single day. See all we do at ronjaworskigolf.com.